for the students to go back, consider what they've been able to do in the past, and how they might do it again, how they might do it differently, and then going over in the future how they might try to improve. But some of the fundamentals of portfolio assessment, kind of moving on. So like many language assessments, like the one that we just saw, portfolios really do intend to measure a target feature of the target language, whether that's listening comprehension, speaking ability, another linguistic or intercultural skill or competence. However, unlike other assessments, portfolios are made up of a collection of student learning that spans multiple measures, assessments, various artifacts, kind of with the intention, as we saw before, of demonstrating through measurable means and reflection, student development and growth over time. But in many cases, portfolios are planned and designed by teachers, but then completed by the students themselves, which allows a degree of personalization in ways that other assessments like that worksheet just really cannot capture. Regarding the format of portfolios, they can either be print or digital or really any combination of the two, but that should ultimately be determined by your unique context and individual classroom needs. Obviously, there's advantages and disadvantages to both, but they can include formative and summative assessments, recordings, reflective essays, and final projects. All right. Moving on, we'll focus a little bit on portfolio artifacts and their connection to communicative modes. So portfolio artifacts are tangible pieces of evidence of language learners' growth and should reflect students' performance and abilities in communicative modes. So some examples could be classwork, task completion, engagement in regular activities from day-to-day activities in the class, unit tests, projects, and presentations that can help showcase student performance in more structured traditional assessments. Those can be included, but it's still important that those assessments capture authentic communication, not just knowledge about the target language. So what we would want to avoid, in a sense, is worksheets like the one that we saw being uploaded into a portfolio as demonstration of communication, because like we saw, that doesn't necessarily capture a student's ability to use the language for communication there. Reflective pieces. This part, I think, is one of the biggest affordances and benefits to portfolios. Learners have the opportunity to express their own thoughts on their language learning journey, if you will, and their personal growth. And perhaps even their use of the target language outside the classroom. So by tracking progress, setting goals, and reflecting on language learning, students can stand to cultivate a growth mindset and a commitment to continuous improvement over time. Next, we've got more meaningful language learning based on proficiency. So e-portfolios prioritize real-world language skills through diverse artifacts that can help, lead to a deeper understanding of the language on behalf of the students. And then finally, e-portfolios can really help students acquire more digital communication skills and media literacy, preparing them for success really beyond the classroom into the modern world, serving students' futures really in countless ways beyond just their personal lives, but professionally as well. So those are just some of the benefits of using e-portfolios. First off is rubrics. So rubrics can help promote self-assessment by providing clear and objective criteria for learners to evaluate their language proficiency, especially for younger learners. For example, in my case, 11 to 12-year-olds, consider revising some of the language used in the rubrics so it's clear and really appropriate for their developmental levels. samples of student work that align to different proficiencies on a rubric, help bring those rubrics to life and give the students something to go off of. Recordings can really help self-assessment as well. By listening to or watching themselves speak in the target language, learners can identify areas where they excel, areas where they would like to improve, and those audio and video recordings can help the learners become a little bit more aware of things like pronunciation, intonation, grammar, vocab use, all of which are really important aspects of language learning. So again, reflection here is key if you can incorporate that into a portfolio design. Next is the communicative modes. So explicitly teaching the different communicative modes to the learners in a personal, presentational, interpretive can help the students' self-assessment in several ways. It allows the learners to understand different types and purposes involved in communication overall, and how they can apply those modes in different contexts. This can help learners identify their strengths and weaknesses in each mode, and set more specific goals related to each of those modes and how they might improve. So now I'm going to jump over to the chat because I've been seeing some things. So did you say looking back at the recordings? I hear there's an app for that. I've heard of that one too, Grant. So that's, an opportunity to leverage technology, in this case extemporary, for the students to go back, consider what they've been able to do in the past, and how they might do it again, how they might do it differently, and then going over in the future how they might try to improve. Melanie mentions, I have trouble with students actually listening to their audio feedbacks from me, so I might need some advice on how to ensure they're listening to them, taking notes and reflecting on it to improve. In my experience, I have, 11 and 12-year-olds are so self-conscious and they did not enjoy going back and listening to their recordings. I found personally giving them something specific to go back and listen to can kind of cut out the noise. So for example, I gave them a specific phoning to focus in on, a pronunciation. Like, did you say all of your, did you pronounce all of your H's silently? Like, you did not say hola, but hola. Like, did you do that and go through and just listen for that? Only focus on one thing at a time. And by bringing their attention, or by narrowing it, it gives them a little bit less of a chance to feel overwhelmed or more self-critical. And then from there, you can develop your day-to-day lessons and the content. Even though it's very tempting to start with that, by working backwards, you're able to refine your approach a lot more strategically. So with your goals and assessments already in mind, you can create more engaging and meaningful learning experiences for your students. So backwards design really ensures that your instruction is more purposeful, focused, and aligned with your desired outcomes, which makes the learning experience a lot more effective and rewarding for the students. An example of this, and then Melanie mentioned this, Kaylee mentioned this as well. In our example, or our own context, was before we created our e-portfolio, my colleagues and I drafted this document called Portrait of a Sixth Grade Spanish Student, that you can see here linked, or shown on the screen. It's also linked in the e-portfolio website that I shared. But we really tried to take the ACTFL and California World Language Standards, translate them into kid-friendly language, and then sharing those with the students, it allowed them to understand the skills and abilities that they're expected to accomplish by the end of the year. And we were a lot more intentional implementing the curriculum, refining our projects, our instruction as teachers, and our activities that we used in class, so that they were all designed to meet these goals. And then further, the students themselves really understood the ultimate goal of the course, and could really target their own their own goals and objectives for the course to meet these, or in lots of cases kind of surpass them. Also, this is shared with parents, teachers, the wider school community, and that helped kind of clarify the expectations for the world language program in our district.